Hey, how's everybody doing today? I'm Anthony. You're watching Palmetto Prepared. Today we're going to continue on with our End of the World Nutrition series. And on this episode we are going to talk about fats. Fats are one of the three major macronutrients you need. Last week we discussed protein. This week we are discussing fats because fats are very crucial to bodily function and basically being alive. One of the main things I wanted to hit on here was fat makes it possible to absorb and use certain vitamins. Now, there are vitamins out there that are called water-soluble vitamins. Okay, those are the ones that only need to have a little bit of water in you to be able to absorb them, like vitamin C. However, there are other vitamins out there that are called fat-soluble vitamins. You need fat in order to store or use these vitamins. Those are vitamin A, D, E, and K. I will get into all the vitamins and what they do in another video, but just know that you need certain fats or a certain amount of fat in order to use or store these vitamins. So obviously if you do not have fat, you can't store vitamins, you don't survive. Alright, so just kind of know that part. Now the main thing I want to hit here in this video is the types of fats and how you can find them if there was a, say, grid down or end of the world scenario. First one I wanted to hit on, which I think is the most important because it is so abundant, is saturated fat. The reason why saturated fat is called saturated fat is because the fat molecule is completely covered in hydrogen atoms. It is saturated with hydrogen atoms. That means it is solid at room temperature. So if your room temperature is 76 degrees, saturated fat will be solid. It will not be a liquid. That usually means, like say you've ever cooked bacon before. I know we've all cooked bacon or seen it cooked. If you've ever cooked bacon and moved the pan over to the side to let it cool down before you all the grease in the bottom and come back and seen it turn white, that's saturated fat because obviously when it cools down to room temperature, it turns into a solid. Now, a good example also is if you've ever bought coconut oil. Coconut oil, true coconut oil, will be solid at about 76 degrees. When you get over about 80, say if it's summertime, and you put it outside, it's going to turn into a liquid. That is another example of a saturated fat. Now, saturated fats are very important because they are the number one fat that you're most likely going to run into on a daily basis, depending on where you are located at. Now, saturated fats are very important to men, especially because it is necessary for testosterone production, but it is also fat that is stored within your muscle. So after you use all your glycogen, like your carbohydrate, quick energy, you're going to be able to tap into them fat sources, and saturated fat is usually the number one because it's an intra-fat or intramuscle fat. So just keep that part in mind. Now, where it is found is primarily in red meat. So anything with red meat, it's usually a mammal. You're going to get obviously a lot of saturated fat, but it's also in poultry, like dark meat poultry, but poultry skin. That's why if you ever try to avoid saturated fat, they always tell you to take your skin off your poultry. Dairy, butter, lard, processed foods, processed meats especially, coconut oil, cocoa butter, chocolate, dark chocolate, palm oil, and whole eggs. So you do have some saturated fat in the egg yolks. Those are the best places to get saturated fat, which is why I say they're everywhere because there's always some sort of animal usually left to right of you, depending on what part of the world you're in. I'm in the southeast, so obviously we have squirrels, deer, whatever. Always going to be some form of saturated fats. The second type I wanted to hit on is unsaturated fats, and there are two subtypes of unsaturated fats. You have monounsaturated, which basically means there's only one hydrogen atom per fat molecule, and then polyunsaturated, which means there's more than one hydrogen atom per fat molecule, but not so much that it becomes saturated. Now, these fats are obviously liquid at room temperature, and a good example of monounsaturated fat are olive oil, peanut butter, avocados. You'll find it in nuts, legumes, that kind of thing. And polyunsaturated fats are traditionally known as your omega-3. So if you ever hear someone saying, hey, you need omega-3s or you need to take omega-3 fatty acid supplements like your fish oils, that kind of stuff, is because that is also liquid at room temperature. And these are traditionally known as the healthier fats. Now, I'm not going to get into the semantics of it being healthy or not. This is not what this video is about. This video is about survival, not what is ultimately healthy for your heart. But there was a bad rap given to saturated fats right after World War II. Certain scientists that were on the board noticed that people that live in the Mediterranean that survive primarily off fish were healthier than those that eat red meat, that kind of thing. But there's since been, I guess, a couple years ago, a big stink about is this really true or not, and it's all about factory farming techniques, toxins from that kind of stuff, and how you prepare your food, i.e. fried, trans fats, that kind of nasty stuff. So we're not going to get into all that fun stuff. I just wanted to try to give an idea of what is saturated fat and what is unsaturated fat. And also, one thing I definitely want to add is in order to get omega-3 fatty acids, the best things to eat are oily fish, safflower oil, grapeseed oil, soybean oil, and sunflower oil. Also nuts, seeds, and obviously free-range eggs, because they have unsaturated fats and saturated fats. Now, as you might notice, I definitely left out trans fats in this video. Basically, the reason why is because in a grid down scenario, or it comes down to finding in nature, you're not going to find trans fats, since trans fats are man-made. Basically, what they do is they add hydrogen to liquid oils to make them stable. That's why if you look at the back of your label and you see partially hydrogenated oil, that is trans fat. So when it comes out to nature, they don't have that. It doesn't exist. That's why I'm not hitting it here. But trans fats are not very good for you, being man-made. I would definitely try to avoid them. They're usually in a lot of your highly processed foods. Last thing I wanted to add here, because it is very, very important, is I wanted to mention something called rabbit starvation or protein toxicity. The reason why, or protein poisoning, the reason why this is so important and it really correlates to fats is because if you are in a hunting type scenario where there is grid down or end of the world, a lot of the animals that are like in today's factory farms aren't going to have the fat stores that wild animals do. That's why if you've ever gone hunting, you'll notice that, say, deer is so much more leaner than cattle, because cattle are obviously fed corn and a lot of grains to fatten them up, and that's why they have the nice marbled fat, all that good stuff. But if you've ever gone hunting for, say, elk, deer, rabbit, it's very lean meat, and you can't really get the good amount of fat that you need just from eating meat. That's why they call it rabbit starvation, because yeah, you could be eating meat left and right, you can still die because you're not getting enough fat. Now there is a way around this, and it's kind of gross, but just for survival purposes, depending on the area you are in, a lot of times what they would do, if say we'll just use rabbit, all there was rabbits. Well, obviously rabbits don't have enough fat in there to survive. You'll die from protein toxicity. So what they'll do is they'll take a rabbit and hang it and let the flies get to it. When the flies get to it, they lay their maggots. Maggots will do the work for you by converting the protein into fats. You roast the maggots and you eat the maggots, and congratulations, there's your fats. I know it sounds disgusting, but some countries' maggots are a delicacy, and they are basically little white pure globules of fat. So if that's what you have to do to survive, so be it. You heard it from me. Now I know what you're thinking, Anthony, you are flipping my flapjacks here. There is no possible way I'm going to eat maggots. Guess what? Bugs and grubs and all that fun stuff are almost pure sources of fat and protein. So if the time comes and you need to survive, you're going to be digging into the ground, I guarantee it. So just keep that part in mind. When it comes down to survival, there are abundant sources of fats everywhere, whether it's be hunting, nuts. That's why you see a lot of people gathering nuts, and not to mention, like say, walnuts do have a longer storage, like longer shelf storage than other things. Fish is very important. That's why fishing should always be on top of your list with hunting. And when it comes to growing your own fats, obviously if you live in a climate where you can grow, say, olive oil, that would be a major plus. But don't factor out getting sunflowers, because sunflower seeds are also very high in oils as well. So I hope this video helped you. Please hit that thumbs up if you learned anything from this video. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't, and I will catch y'all later, okay? Bye.